We are now going to correct on your textbook page 6 in your notes problems 8 and 10. When you worked out problem 8, the answer you should have gotten was 203 and 6/30. When I divided 6,096 by 30, I had a remainder of 6, so that remainder becomes my numerator in the fraction, and my denominator is always the divisor or the number I'm dividing by. So instead of writing R6 for remainder 6, I simply write 6/30 or 6 over 30. So final answer, 203 and 6/30. When I look at my second problem, the final answer was 7 and 205/400. Now, when I divided 3,215 by 430, it could go in 7 times, and I have 205 left over. I realize that 205 seems like a huge remainder, but when we're dividing it up into groups of 430, there is not enough to make another group. So we do have to include it as the numerator to our fraction representing the remainder. Now, many of you may realize that 6/30 or 205/400 can be reduced to simplest terms. If I reduce 6/30, I would get 1/5. I do want you to know, though, that I am not requiring reducing. So in this chapter, we'll talk about that more in chapter 2. So your fractions, whatever you get for your remainder, when you write it as a fraction, you may leave it like that. You don't need to reduce. Okay, this is the last example in our unit. We're now going to begin the activities portion of our lesson. So please open up your textbook to page 2, and all activities are also in your workbook. So please open up your workbook to page 3. Textbook page 2 and workbook page 3. Now I also want to mention to you that if you're ever lost as far as what page you should be on, in the videos or flip chart pages, you're always going to see the page that I'm referring to up in this top right-hand corner. TB does refer to textbook, WB refers to your workbook. Now, in addition to having the pages identified, now that we're beginning the activities, I do again have our purpose up here to remind you of what skill we're working on in this particular lesson, and it was determining what operation to use when solving a real-life problem. So let's take a look at activity 1. It says choosing an operation. Work with a partner. The double bar graph shows the history of a citywide cleanup day. Now, every chapter when we begin our activities is also going to have an essential question, and basically it's taking the purpose and putting it into the form of a question. So, how do you know which operation to choose when solving a real-life problem? When I went through the examples, I talked about looking for clue words and picking them out. So that's the skill that you're going to apply as you go through these activities. Okay, so with activity 1, it says underline the key word or phrase that helps you know which operation to use to answer the question. State the operation. Why do you think the key word or phrase indicates the operation you chose? Then you're going to write the expression you can use, or basically write out the math problem. How are you going to solve it? And then find the answer. So I would like you to now take a few minutes, work through these activities with your partner. When you come to the answers, or when you've solved all of the problems in activity 1, you may go on to activity 2. It continues to ask you questions about how to determine which operation to use or how estimation can be helpful. And then I'd also like you to complete activity 3. Once you complete each individual activity, then take a few minutes and check your answers to make sure that they're correct. At the end, on page 5 in your workbook, there is going to be a reflection question. This section starts off with what is your answer. Please answer question 4 as well. How do you know which operation to choose when solving a real-life problem?